All right then. Let's call the meeting of the Committee of the Whole open at 8:18 p.m. Thank you very much. Let's go on to the adoption of the agenda. Any additions? None. I move that the agenda be adopted as presented. Seconded? No additions? All those in favor? Carried then. Thank you. Let's go on now to disclosures of pecuniary interests. None. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I believe that Mr. Zant seconded the adoption of the agenda for tonight. Yes, I believe so. If it's not Mr. Zant, if it wasn't Mr. Zant, I can come up with another name if you want. That's no problem. All right. Yes, I seconded that motion. Yes. All right. Let's go on to delegations, presentations. There are none. Petitions and correspondence. That's item 5. Let's go on to that. Do you mind if we go on to the question period right away? So if those wish to make a presentation or ask a question of town council, just step forward to the mic, give us your name and your address. I know one at a time. You seem to be two big burly guys. I don't want any fights breaking out in the council room. Not to worry. I'm from Bourget. Mr. Mayor, good evening, Mr. Mayor, and councillors of the Township of Clarence and Rockland. We wish to solicit your community spirit and hope to obtain your support. Now, for the past 42 years, the Optimist Club in Bourget has always solicited the best out of its youth, and for many years now we've implemented many activities such as Halloween festivities, carnivals, literary essays, safety on wheels programs, youth hockey leagues, respect of the law program, non-violence day, 3-star sports, say no to drugs, and a lengthy list of other activities that I have not had the opportunity to read out to you. Now, since the inception of the club in 1976, we've never requested financial help. Now, here's how you can help us out. On the 5th of May this year, we'll offer a country music fest, one of the most important means to allow us to finance our projects. Could you please could you be in a position to sponsor us to ensure this activity's success? And we hope to do as much today as we did in the past and hope to do in the future to implement activities that will benefit our youngsters. Thank you. Well, Mr. Mayor, I believe that we are in receipt of a $3,000 grant. Yes, my name is Sylvain Drouin, Mr. Mayor, 3584 Drouin Street. I've just appeared. I want to address this bylaw that you've just voted on. This is a camping facility that's been in opening for the past 30 to 40 years, and we've applied now to rezone that area. However, because the law had been implemented many years ago, and bylaws had been implemented many years ago, I don't know what happened. This should have been enacted by the Township of Clarence at the time. I'm wondering if the town council can reimburse us, not the totality of the fees we were required to pay out, but at least that's for the zoning change, zoning bylaw change. Mr. Linner, do you have any feedback to give us if this was a zoning change that we need to pay out? Can we go back to Mr. Drouin and give him the reason why? Because this is an existing camping facility. Well, Mr. Mayor, the zoning provisions did not support the establishment he was running at that point in time, so we had to rework the zoning bylaws, zoning provisions at that time to allow him to operate. Yes, I believe that the matter that was raised was there any oversight with regard to this issue, or are there any fees to be paid? But the fees are there to be paid, Mr. Mayor, for zoning change that needs to be implemented. Go ahead, Nathalie Drouin. The camping facility existed in the past, but when the camping facility was set up at that time. There was no zoning camping bylaw at that time. We met with members of town council. We started initial steps, preliminary talks, and we'd come to an understanding that they would reimburse our fees with regards to that. Do you have anything in writing with regard to this? Do you have someone who engaged in conversation with the initial town council? Well, my mother did. If you can come up with a letter stating that you would be reimbursed. A letter had been sent to council at that time when talks were entered into for, I believe, dealing with a reimbursement of $2,900. What year was that letter sent, by the way? Well, this year it was sent to the department. Well, if there was a zoning change that was requested, they needed to pay for the zoning bylaw to be applied for and implemented. But you see, there was no zoning that was pre-existing in that particular area. You see, when that area was developed, there was no zoning for camping sites in Clarence, you see. There was no applicable zoning provisions. Well, ma'am, maybe we can look at this because it was a pre-existing situation, basically. If you have a letter stating that the town of Clarence and Rockland undertook to or undertakes to pay for part of your or at least all of your fees, then let us know. Forward this letter to us. Does camping facilities or establishments fall under the provision of this particular bylaw? Well, yes. And we don't need to go into minor variances because, well, were the zoning costs associated with that also taken into account when calculating the fees owed? And if an expenditure, can it be written off on taxes to be owed to the federal or the municipal government? Well, let's take a look, and if there's a clause stating, or if you have a letter or information that could be supplied to us, that's even better. But we'll take a look at this situation. What's your phone number, by the way? 613? Well, in any event, yes. Okay, it's in your document. Please don't read it out in the air, on the open air, on the air like this. Well, I know that this was approved by the Ontario government. Now, was it? Obviously, it was changed from a sand pit. They had to close that sand pit part of the operation and convert it into a camping facility. Now, the town council stated we'll let things stand right now and we'll look into it further. So, of course, it's been many years since this situation has been prevailing. Well, I was wondering if you had a letter. I just wanted to understand a tad bit more of what was going on. Now, the letter stated that the fees were to be paid by the township. Is that what you're saying, sir? This is what you have in your position? Well, why was there a request for minor variance? Because it was a pre-existing establishment. It was a pre-existing operation, so there was no need to change the bylaw. This is what the contention, this is what the rationale is. Well, that's why they're asking for a reimbursement then. They're alleging that they did not proceed to a change in the bylaw. Well, if you have a letter to that effect, send it to us. That will help things out. Thank you then. All right. Let's go on to petitions and correspondence. Councillor Levert, item 5.1. Yes, Mr. Mayor? This is the letter that we received from the Bourget Optimist Club. And we need a directive from Town Council that can be implemented at the next regular meeting of Town Council with regard to the request for funding of their activities. So, all we're doing is that we are taking the gentleman's request that was made earlier on in at this particular meeting, be endorsed at the next regular meeting. I also move that I would also suggest that item 5.1 and 5.2, the letter from the town of Essex in regards to school properties in case of closure, be adopted. And item 5.3, supporting a request from the town of Lakeshore in regard to marijuana tax revenue. Uh, I believe that would be a good thing. Well, let's go back to the school issue. They purchased the old school property at $1 and for $1, and that was sold back to a developer, and it converted this into a condominium project. We see the letter states that if the municipality wants to take this over, that's fine. Yes, I understand. I understand. See, the council is free to do whatever it wants with this particular property, though. You see, let's just say that we're supporting the letter from the town of Essex in regards to school properties in case of closure. We're also supporting the request from the town of Lakeshore with regard to marijuana tax revenue, and we should also support financial support request from the Rockland Marching Band. Yes, well, that's fine then. Let's go on now to let's go back, revisit the funding request from the Bourget Optimist Club, the American Country Evening 2018. I know that the town of Ottawa, whenever it would be a great opportunity to take certain services that we have in the city and advertise those, such as transit and so on and so forth. Can we ask Mr. Boucher his opinion on this? Well, my opinion on this? My opinion? My opinion on this, Mr. Mayor? Well, we don't have any money in the budget to support any of those, save and except if we come up with additional money somewhere within our tight budget up to now. What we do is that if we can come up with additional money, let's come back with a recommendation to that effect at the next regular meeting of council. That's all I can say. Well, let me just ask this. The financial request, the Optimist financial request, what are they asking for? Well, the money that will be received would be to support activities at the school, about $40,000 worth of activities. We'd like to do our share. What we're going to do is that we're going to purchase a splash pad like we've done in previous years to support some activities that are sponsored for students. Well, it's not within the confines of our budget, of course, but let's go revisit that within 2 weeks and see if we can do anything to give you some money. We have to be aware of one thing also, Mr. Mayor, as to we have to pinpoint, well, if we have to decide whether or not we're going to finance this or not, we have to take into account other things that we finance, such as the carnival activities, the St. Pascal Carnival festivity. It's a 3 to 4 day festivity. Clarence Creek runs for close to 2 weeks. Hammond also runs for another week. We have to take this into consideration. We just can't give out too much money just for one evening for one event. You know what I mean? Well, let's take a closer look at it, and let's decide upon this at the next regular meeting of Town Council. All those in favor then? Carried. Fine. Well, fine. But who's going to take a closer look at this particular matter? With community service, our community services folk will take a closer look at this. And if the community services folks can tell you, Mr. Mayor, no, right now, because I have no additional budget to satisfy everyone. Mrs. Collier, please. Well, basically, the money we might have to spend at our discretion would be taken from the contingency fund. That's not the purpose for that fund, but that's the only discretionary funding that we have at our disposal. It might be better if we each gave something out of our discretionary budget. At least we're giving a little bit of something. That would be our recommendation, if everybody wants to, of course. Well, as Councillor Lalonde has stated, we have to be aware because there are many organizations that solicit our help. Let's not forget also that the Rockland Optimist Club has requested $10,000. You know, we're paying for the Optimist Performance Hall expenditures as well as the splash pad related expenditures. I know. That's why we say that we have to be aware. We have to be cautious. But, you know, these folks are not taking the money that we give them and sticking them in their pockets. They've built a lot of things. But the same rule applies for the Lions Club and the Clarence Creek and the Bourget and the other social clubs have done. But they've never asked for any money from us, though. Well, they do so whenever Winter Carnival comes around. Don't forget, there's also a community center that we've sponsored, $25,000, or $34,000, or $25,000, $25,000 that we've given out. I move, Mr. Mayor. I move. I move. Now, because this is an activity that is ongoing one year after the other, that is a yearly activity, I believe that the grant that we give out to the Clarence Creek Country Festival, it's a 2-year festival. It was a 2-year contract that we'd entered into. This is that. So if we take a look at the 2019 budget, we might sponsor another activity such as this one, because this one is already ongoing. I know that the budget-related activity has been going on for many years, but I think that we have to take a look at what we can pay out in 2019 at our 2019 budget. Well, in the budget, is there not an amount earmarked for community activities? Yes, yes, there is. There is a arts and culture program. Yes, yes, indeed. However, their request is for a fundraising activity, so it's not part and parcel of the criteria for this particular program. There are only $4,000 for this particular program. We've received 8 requests this year, and as you've noticed, there are 8 requests that were sent to council, made to council through a letter that was sent to us. Item 5.4 for the Rockland Marching Band. They've made a request under this particular under the stipulations of this program, but not within the precise criteria of this particular grant program. That's why we refused them. That's why they sent us a letter to council. They sent a letter to council. That's why we're before council. This is why we'll take a look at take a closer look at the budget and even give out individual amounts from our discretionary funds. Just a minute, Mr. Mayor. I would believe that, as Mr. Lalonde has stated, well, you know, it breaks somebody's heart sometimes to say, well, we have to say no. If we say yes, yes, yes to all requests, it would bust the budget that we have to work with. Mr. Boucher has some alluded to criteria that need to be met. So Mr. Boucher stated that those that we've given out money to, were respectful of all criteria that we've set out. If those requests that do not meet our requirements are still paid for by us, well, the money should come out from our discretionary fund. I believe that it seems as if we're already in the process of picking their pockets, or to pay for other events or other things. We have to keep to their budgetary limits set out. We've said yes to certain festivals and said no to other festivals. Where's the criteria that rests in all of this? Well, the Country Jamboree Clarence Festival was not subject to any money on our part, given out by us. The $10,000 amount with regards to this event was borne out by the City of Clarence and Rockland. You know, this is for the payment of employee salaries or arena-related expenditures. We don't remit any money back to the organization involved. I think it's best to apply for money during the fall prior to the budget being decided upon. As things stand right now, our budget does not allow us to give out this money. I believe, Mr. Mayor, that we need a policy in the City of Clarence and Rockland that will allow us to take a look at certain things. Well, Mr. Boucher has this policy in hand right now. Well, he does have a bylaw, but he doesn't have a budget that goes hand in hand with the bylaw that he needs to enforce. He has the heart, but he doesn't have the money to fund what his heart wishes to fund. Well, there are some amounts, even at the county level, that there are some things that are paid for and others that are not. Well, you know, we're talking about arts rentals and then country festivals. We're picking and choosing. Well, we have to decide whether they do, if they do apply, whether they fit in our criteria or not. The good thing in all of this is that there are a lot of things that are going on within the City of Clarence and Rockland. And of course, the Optimist Club is an integral part of that. But of course, if we give money to one Optimist Club, then others will come forward. The best thing is that they come back and make their initial early requests, and if they're worried about creating a precedent, well then so be it. And let's just say that we're saying no because we don't want to create a precedent. Let's not say come back in 2 weeks and let's see if we can come up with funds. If this is creating a precedent, let it be the practice that we don't. The principle is that we have a budget. Can we not do like we did at the country jamboree and offer them town employees services? Well, that's already included in the annual amount that we give them, with regards to management of the building. I believe that with regards to this, from what I had occasion to review up to now, is that we've already supplied manpower. We're already helping out in kind, at least, with the implementation of certain events. In any event, the policy that I've read is left to the discretion of individual members. If someone wishes to give out $100, go ahead, individually from your own personal discretionary budget. So can we all support this? Well, no, we can't support this particular item because we certainly don't have the funds for it. Let's go on also to the letter from the town of Essex in regard to school properties in case of closure. Moved by Councillor Lalonde and seconded by André Lalonde. A motion to support. All those in favor? Carried. And thank you. Supporting request from the town of Lakeshore in regard to marijuana tax revenue. They're asking the Government of Canada and Government of Ontario to give us a bit of costs, give us a little bit of revenue stemming from this to offset the cost of enforcement, of additional enforcement, when it will come into effect. Well, I'm not in agreement with this. Everyone wants to hop into this bandwagon. What's happened is that the price is going to go up so much that black market is going to prevail. The black market still prevails. Take a look at cigarettes right now. It's the same thing. Legitimacy, of course, is one thing. No, Mr. Guillemot, I'm just giving you my opinion. Look, there's going to be so much taxes on marijuana right now that might not be worth it. Well, Mr. Berlinguet, you might have other sources of supplying us with material. Well, no. See, the thing is that we're asking to have a part of this income because the OPP costs are going to increase. I don't think the police will have less to do. Oh, please, Mr. Berlinguet, I believe they'll have much more to do. How do you figure that somebody is, smoking a joint in his basement, for example, and, well, it's not Mr. Mayor, it's not an offense anymore. It's not an offense, Mr. Mayor, anymore, you see. Look, you don't have the right to drink and to drive and smoke. Beer is legal, but you don't have the right to drive a car while impaired. But I'm just saying that additional taxes might come our way. I have a mover and a seconder. Who's in favor of supporting the contents of this letter? Fine, thank you then. Item 5.4, financial support request from the Rockland Marching Band. Well, this will be brought back to the regular meeting of Town Council for support of this financial request. I move that it be tabled until such time as we take a closer look at the budget. Seconded by Mr. Zant. I just had one question here, Mr. Mayor. Just one point to raise. The marching band, it practices in a building that is owned by us. Is there an elevator that is used to bring the equipment from the basement up to where they practice? There was a request that was made that did not fall within the parameters of the loan that they were requesting, or of the financial help that they were requesting. They were also asking for additional money to drive their members from one competition to another. This did not fall within the criteria of our arts and culture program. So we're not just talking about operating or installing an elevator or driving them from one place to another. No, they're asking Town Council to help them with regards to operational or administration expenditures to help them with their overall expenditures. This is the request that Mr. Guibard is making. Well, firstly, Mr. Mayor, this is a request to pay out for expenditures incurred by residents that are not from Clarence and Rockland. There are some, but not too many. Those that we would pay for would be to bring people from Orleans here. This is my first problem. Second problem that I have is that we don't even charge them rent to hold their practices. But we do charge a rent to the Optimist Club whenever they have need of this facility. Well, the fact is that we don't charge them for any rent. I have a bit more difficulty in being called upon to pay for residents that are being driven from another town to here to enjoy our facilities. Well, of course, I understand. But we're still talking about the Rockland Marching Band. If we take a look at the hockey team, AAA hockey team, I don't know if there are even 3 Rockland residents that make up this hockey team. All the rest come from all over. So, well, I have a bit more difficulty in supporting this request. I'm asking that this be reconsidered when we review the budget anew in the coming months. All those in favor? Carried then. So are we talking about reviewing this during the next review that we'll perform of the budget later on this year? Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, that's fine then. All right then. Next, we have a notice of motion, by the way. Notice of motion presented by Councillor Carl Grimard. I move that the administration be mandated to review the mandate of the Environmental Advisory Committee to better reflect the needs of the municipality. Seconded by Councillor Zant. Any questions? I spoke of this to our town clerk with regards to the frequency, the number of meetings that are called, and maybe the number of members also that sit on that particular committee. We might proceed to a rotation of councillors, or even a reduction of the number of councillors that sit on this committee and the subjects that are broached during those meetings. Well, I believe on the 23rd of February 2018, we were invited to take part at the South Nation Conservation Authority Advisory Group meeting with regards to safeguarding our forests. Now, has the Environmental Committee taken part in this meeting? Well, if someone is interested in attending, that's fine. Well, the meeting is held during the day, however. Oh, it's held during the day. I see. You know as well as I do that the counties has enabled us to take control of this process. We'll have to come up with a report with regards to clear-cutting policies that are prevalent in our area. South Nation will send us regular reports to this effect. We should have at least our house in order at the next meeting with regard to this particular item, because we know that the Outaouais River, well, there's the Environmental Conservation Authority has, well, you know as much as I do that Hydro-Quebec is caught up in all of this. There are a lot of things. Well, I can pass a motion that would respect both sides if you wish to, Mr. Mayor. Oh, thank you. All those in favor, carried then. Fine. Mr. Mayor, does Councillor Berlinguet wish us to adopt this bit of correspondence? Well, would he volunteer to attend this meeting? Would he, or these meetings? I believe these series of meetings begin as of the 21st of March. I can certainly state this, yes. A report of the United Counties of Prescott and Russell. Well, we made a presentation to the minister as of the 17th of last month. We came up with Mr. Francis Drouin. We came up to with a federal agreement that was brought to Mrs. Collier's attention. Mrs. Collier came out with all of the necessary documentation, and we presented this to the minister that we met with, and she was quite impressed by the material that we presented to her. Also, the wardens of the United Counties of Prescott and Russell will be held on the 9th of June. Let's go on now to the next item of the agenda, the Smart Cities Challenge. You have information with regards to this, Mario? Whereas on February the 14th, 2018, the City of Clarence and Rockland initiated a community feedback survey to the residents and stakeholders in the municipality, and whereas comments were requested to be submitted to the city by no later than February the 28th, 2018, and whereas, as of the writing of this report, staff is compiling the results of the community survey. Be it resolved that the challenge statement proposed by staff to be presented at the meeting be submitted to council for formal approval, and that the committee of the whole recommend to council that directives be given out to prepare a statement at its meeting on the 21st of March 2018 with regards to this. Seconded by Councillor Berlinguet. Any questions? Let me tell you that we met someone at the federal level. We were with Mr. Darch and Mrs. Collier. We took a look at certain points that needed to be looked at. Dr. Fillon in Hawkesbury, she's the one that's in charge of what needs to be done at the Hawkesbury General Hospital in Hawkesbury, and Dr. Fillon had given us a few reference points to deal with. Mr. Lalonde, Mr. Darch, maybe the results speak for themselves. Transportation is and always has been this city's biggest challenge. But with what you know, with the criteria for funding for this particular project in each of the funding categories, I mean, is there a way that you can massage this thing into something that we can work with? Because transportation, I mean, a highway is a highway, but I'm not sure how it fits in the criterias. Yeah, I may agree with you on that. I mean, the results, as you say, sort of speak for themselves. Roughly 35% of respondents are making reference to transportation. And by that, we're talking about the Highway 174/17 and transit, and I grouped those together. But the problem with the transportation component is that it's a facility that's actually under the jurisdiction of the City of Ottawa and the county, and it's not something that we have. And I'm not necessarily convinced that it's what they're looking for under this particular program. I mean, we've started to look into some, let's say, innovative technologies in regards to the corridor, but when we started to look at those, and under Rose Mining, and I don't think it's going to do it because we got that feedback from the project director for this program that it's not innovative enough. We looked at some innovative technologies, but I believe there's significant operational impacts and implementation scheduling issues. So our recommendation to you is that we not focus on transportation. It's something that's in your strategic plan right now. It's something that we'll be pursuing under those initiatives. So when you take that one off the table, I would suggest that if you took a look at the health-related issues, and there are actually two bars there. I guess in hindsight we could have almost grouped those together, but there are 47 responses to the health, and there was another one for healthy living. Now, if you combine these two under the banner of health and wellness, they're fairly significant. It's a number 2 priority for us, and I think there are lots more activities or to develop a program, opportunities to develop a program, and what we need to do, and I'm thinking, well, I didn't realize that we said that we were going to come up with a challenge statement for your endorsement here tonight, but we just closed the comment section here last week, and I made a couple of inquiry calls late in the week, and we got flooded from with calls from potential stakeholders that have data, suggestions for certain programs, and would be willing to partner with us. Partnership is a key element, so I think that what we would like to get from Council tonight is to get your concurrence that we will work toward a submission under health and wellness. And then we'll meet with some of the stakeholders that are out there that can provide us with data and have ideas as to what type of program we can look at. And so all we need is that little bit of extra time. The clock is ticking. I mean, April 20th or 24th, whatever, is going to come about very quickly. But we need this at this time. One of the things that came out of the survey, though, that I found interesting was this. About 33 respondents said that physical fitness was an issue for them, and then there was another group, not as much, but there was another group that stated that gave responses on active transportation. Now, active transportation, I could argue that's something that's consistent with our strategic plan. You know, your pathways and the cycling and the like, and that's a health-related matter. But is it going to do it, you know, in terms of the criteria that they're looking for? You've got to look at data, technology, something innovative maybe, and it's transferable to other municipalities. So, on the surface, this program seems very straightforward and easy to do, but look, if you want to check off as many boxes as you can, you really have to take a long, hard look at a project. Well, you only got 50 words there. Well, the challenge statement, you know, between the challenge statement, we lose 40 out of 100. So that's 50 words. You have to say what quality of life issue are you dealing with, and what results do you expect, and how are you going to measure it. So, you know, if I start to, if you take a look at some takeaways, I developed a challenge statement probably from what I viewed was the easiest one. I actually picked transportation. I went through a number of iterations, and I think that we have to meet with some of our stakeholders on this one and see what we can do. We've had discussions with Dr. Paul, the health unit, the Easter Champlain Ling. They're all keen, you know, they're all excited to do this, but it's a matter of kicking off the project. There's also mental health. I think that the Eastern Ontario is considered as one of the sites that can be made use of to this effect. To people's defense, I guess, it's not knowing what the criteria of the program are, and you're being asked the question, what's your biggest challenge? Well, even before we did the survey, I think everyone in this room had figured out what would be the number one issue. So, yes. So we can still use the data from this moving forward, you know, to push our MP and our MPP on getting this funded eventually. So it's not a loss, really. It's not lost data, but I think that you're right. We need to focus on... Well, I just wanted to share a conversation with a lady that we've been in touch from the federal government that's running this program, and I touched to her about the road because I knew then that the road is the biggest challenge, you know, and she said, oh, well, obviously this is a too complicated an item to tackle. There are things that fall out of that, you know, and the attached comments, if you had time to look at the details, is number one, lack of family time. This is one of the bigger pressures. She says you can take from that and create your challenge, you know, with regards to the municipality you're dealing with. So not having time for physical fitness is because they're on the road, you know, and things like that. We could still tie in the road. Obviously, this is a problem that is creating a secondary problem that is real within our community. So Mr. Bedard just spent quite a bit of time, and this is why we started to contact some of the people in the health industry to see what some of the prevailing trends are. So we're just sort of diving into that, and they have so much data it would make your head spin. So we're trying to stay at a high level enough, you know, to try to identify what the challenge is and come back and present to you what we think is a viable challenge to present and tackle with as a reasonable solution. All right then. All those in favor then? Well, I was just going to say, I don't think that the questions were clear enough because the majority were looking for a smart city and The answer that we got, 98% are negative. Uh huh. So I understand. I just want to clarify also that this lady that we met with from the federal government, she said, you need to ask your community what is their biggest challenge. So specifically, she used those words. That's why we asked that. She said they want to fix a problem in our communities or in a community that's affecting a given or your community. So she said you have to ask that. What is your daily challenge? That's why it was phrased that way. Well, the question that was asked is that this lady was right on top of this situation, you know. It's actually, well, it's very sad though, because we did advertise this in the Vision and on Facebook and everywhere else. It was also on our website. And at the end of the day, well, you know, 0.01% of reaction was noticed. It's just too bad. You know, we're asking people to have a say and they don't respond. But still, 334 people responded. So one person, you can only use one computer. So that might have stood for the opinion of one, two, three, maybe four families. And then if you keep in mind that it's as a percentage of the total, it's going to be the population that usually responds. So if you know, back towards age 14 and down, that's you have a small percentage, but as age groups go up, then your percentage response will go up. So, but it's still fairly represents, and it starts to mirror what we've heard at the strategic plan process. During the strategic plan, we went out there and we beat the carpets, and we got 1,500 people that we touched. So, you know, for those kind of exercises, I think it was a significant number of people. I do agree with basically that this looks pretty much what people complain about. Yeah, I just wish it could have been a little bit more. That's all. Yes, and I think that you'll find that it's fairly significant in terms of participation is, you know, within a municipality. All right, all those in favor, carry then. Thank you. Let's go on now to the next item, which is the Compliance Audit Committee. The Committee of the Whole recommends that Council approves the establishment of a joint compliance audit committee with the participating municipalities located within the United Counties of Prescott and Russell for the 2018 and 2022 term. Seconded by Councillor Simard. Any questions? Well, it's a great initiative, Mr. Mayor. All those in favor? Great. 9.3, Statement of Remuneration that the Committee of the Whole recommends the Town Council of the Corporation of City of Clarence and Rockland adopts the detailed Statement of Remuneration and indemnities for 2017 paid out as set out in Report FIN 2018-008. Seconded by Councillor Berlinguet. Any questions? All those in favor? Well, thank you very much. Payment to the workplace safety. Councillor Lalonde. Hold on, now let me see if I can come up with this, Mr. Mayor. That report FIN 2018-006 be received for information purposes. Seconded by Councillor Simard. Any questions? All those in favor then? Carried. Thank you. I had a question. The $60,000 amount that we're called upon to pay, is that with regard to an ex-employee again? Yes, Mr. Dunoyer, exactly. As explained in the report, prior to 2010, we were involved with the policy set out in Appendix 2. Now, even though that we are part and parcel of Appendix 1 and we have insurance to that effect, everything prior all declarations whereby the event declared itself. When did this occur? Well, he just died, but he was covered in November 2010. He quit before November 2010. Yes. It cost us $60,000 nonetheless. It states as of the 31st of December 2016, the Township of Clarence and Rockland received an actuarial assessment from the CSST stating that $1,552,000. Well, yes, that's right. We had an actuarial, and we're taking a look at all of those costs, but in the future, we're bringing them back in terms of costs of today. So in the financial statements, there is a liability of 1.5 million contingency fund, and that's an amount that will be paid in the future. Each and every year, we'll pay a part of that down. It will be reduced. Now, the change that we've encountered as opposed to 2017, well, in 2017, we haven't received any yet, but we're just waiting for an increase. Will there be a major increase? As I've told you, I didn't receive a report as to this yet. It's hard to say. It's hard to define. Thank you. All right, let's go on now to cash handling policies. Councillor Levert. Mr. Mayor, the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council authorizes the new cash handling policy number FIN 18-01. Seconded by Councillor Berlinguet. Any questions? All those in favor? Thank you very much. We ought to have had implemented that much before today. That's a good measure to implement. Let's go on to 2018 budget. Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Move that the Committee of the Whole adopt modifications to the 2018 operational budget. Seconded by Councillor Lalonde. Any questions? It was great work. Great work was done by one and all. Fine, fine. All those in favor? Any questions? Yes, any questions? Well, we have to reduce. Well, we have to readjust this amount, do we not? So we'll take it from the operational budget, yes, because apparently we don't need as much machinery as, because this relates to retail business establishment hours of operation. Oh, I see. So you weren't listening to that one, eh? He said that we weren't working as hard as we should. Oh, my. Did you want to buy a second one? He wants to buy a bigger one now. Oh, I see. All those in favor, by the way, with regards to cash handling policies? That's fine. Let's go on now to item 9.6, 2018 budget adjustments. Councillor Zant. I move that report number clerk 2018-04 be received and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that the proposed bylaw be submitted to the Chamber of Commerce in order to obtain their comments before being submitted to Council for consideration. I'll second this. Seconded by Councillor Lalonde. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just maybe a comment, if nothing else. Of course, the report that we submitted to us, and I know that we still haven't consulted what the Chamber of Commerce has in mind, but have we consulted with other towns to determine whether or not we follow the trend that's being adopted? But I support our businesses 100%. Of course, when we have a family unit that is made up of teenagers as well as adults, we want to come up with a proper balance between family considerations and work. Of course, I don't want to play the devil's advocate, but a lot of people want to work overtime also if the overtime is offered to them. But if we take a look at comparables of towns around our area, in our area, we could come up with something a bit more feasible. That's no problem, and I'd like to mention that my intent also is to obtain the public's opinion, because we'll post a survey on our website. My question is that there's only one merchant that asked to remain open on the Sunday evening. Well, the Chamber of Commerce made that request when they approached us. Well, it was spoken at Chamber of Commerce level. Yes, I know. It was dealt with then. I know. But I'm in agreement with Councillor Grimard now with respect to this. There are many that do not open as things stand right now on Sundays. That's fine. Well, that's fine. All right then. All those in favor? Carry then. Let's go on now to item 9.8. New regulations proposed under the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. Councillor Grimard, that report PRO 2018-007 be looked into, and that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Council make a recommendations to the Ministry of Correctional Services and Community Safety in regards to the proposed regulations, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council seek further clarification and additional funding from the province towards meeting the requirements of response time reporting as proposed in the draft regulations. Seconded by Councillor Levert. Well, I'd just like to inform the public. The provincial government states that we need to do a bit better, but gives us nothing that will allow us to do better. If they want us to increase our response time, they'll have to help us out in that. Mr. Wilson, is that would be subject to a letter that would be sent to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario that will help us, help us out? I believe that there's a workshop coming up on proposed regulations on Wednesday, dealing with all three of these regulations. So I think we'll deal with those directly. But the ministry hasn't approved it yet, though. Well, no. Let's tell them. And I was reading all of the documentation, and it's time to put pressure on the ministry. At this point in time, it's time to do so. But, is it possible that you would send us a copy of your response? Yes. I sent a response already to you folks while putting on my fire chief's hat, but I can certainly dig that up and send it to council. We know who's behind it, and it could cost us millions of dollars. Millions. All those in favor? Carried then. Thank you. Let's go on to other items. Questions to department heads? Councillor Zant? I just like it when you start things off like that, because I know you always have questions. Okay. Mrs. Collier, Mr. Wilson, obviously, I have some roads in my ward that are subject to repair. I'm just like to know, it's spring coming. Are we ready for a potential repeat of last year? Obviously, I just want to know if what we're planning, should something happen flood-wise. Yes. Well, Mr. Mayor, I've heard nothing from either of the conservation authorities in terms of any kind of unusual water levels for this year. The residents that I've talked to in Bourget have told me that all flooding areas have already subsided around the creek area, so I hope that everything's in good stead. We have a good supply of sandbags here. We do? Oh, yeah. How many are left over from last year? 500,000-ish. You still have 500,000 sandbags left over from last year? Yes, that's fine. Because I've been asked by certain individuals that were affected last year. I just want to make sure that we're looking into it. That's fine. We're looking into it. Councillor Grimard, thank you, thank you. Councillor Leonard, we talked about the snow clearing activities around the Caron Street area, about the snow clearing on bicycle paths, and we'd concluded that this would have been done. I went by there. Some sections have been cleared of snow, others have not. Can you give us an update as to what's been going on? It ought to have been done. I'll take a closer look at this. You might send your representative to view that area. There are some parts that have been cleared, others have not. So there are some sections that you can walk on to avoid the paved area, but I know that I'm going to ask that both sides of the street be cleared next year of snow. I might not be reelected, who knows, but I'm trying for it. Councillor Lalonde, talking about the flooding update, the city of Renfrew and all of that area, they've already held a meeting with the people involved. Those that came from Germany? No, not the same thing. Is it possible to inform the people involved, because they say that we might get it? Get what? Well, flooding. Well, I know the city of Ottawa, the water is going down. It's not a big problem so far. Water is melting slowly because there's a lot of snow, piled up north in the lakes area. Mrs. Collier, I believe, Mr. Mayor, that there's obviously some remnants of pain and concern from last year, but this year there's no concern from any of the agencies that are monitoring this situation because we want this year to be a repeat of last year. So if they have information, flooding information to that effect, of course it's not from any of our sources. We could put something on our website maybe. I'm not sure, however. They're from South Nation, information from South Nation, maybe the Ottawa Valley. Anyways, those monitoring agencies, we might put something on the website to reassure folks to this effect. Mr. Belanger, Mr. Levert, yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to revisit of some things we dealt with last week when we talked about purchasing policies, where we need to request 3 tenders when we're called upon to purchase something. The last time dealt with the purchase of some tools. However, if we send out 3 tenders, I made a bit of research with regard to the tender process for tools that were involved in being purchased, and there were some surrounding municipalities that could supply those tools to us. Why do we have to go to tender to outside interests when we have all of these local establishments that can supply us with our needs? Well, we can't keep this only to the municipality. With regards, well, if there are 6 businesses that can supply us with what we need, but the information is there, Mr. Laval, the onus is upon them to take a look at this information and act on that information. No, I believe that they're requesting. It's not a question of putting up an ad in a newspaper and saying, send us tenders. These are requests that you make from outside interests or outside businesses. So what's the problem then? Why can't we ask local businesses stemming from the city of Clarence and Rockland, or in the vicinity? Why would we invite 2 outside business interests and not our local interests? Well, this particular situation that you're referring to, sir, the items the cities that wanted to purchase were not available at the time. Those items were not available, and the city wound up saving $6,000 to $7,000 by purchasing them in the exterior. Are we talking about the drills? Yes, the drills. 6 to 700 or 6 to 7,000? We saved 6 to 700. I'm sorry, $6 to $700 for the purchase of a skill saw, a drill. $1,600 worth of expenditures. But I agree with what Mr. Levat is saying. If we have 6 businesses in Clarence and Rockland that can supply those, why would we do 2 in Rockland and 1 in Orleans? Why not all 3 in Clarence and Rockland? I don't know if that's what you wanted to get at. Yes, that's what I wanted to say. Or maybe get it at Walmart. Walmart is right here. Well, there's a lot that's purchased there. Well, how about Home Depot? Home Depot doesn't pay taxes here. How about Home Hardware? Can I look? Is there an answer? We might have. I've made a bit of research to this effect very recently. You see, there were 2 purchases that were made at Home Depot in Orleans in the last year, and the 2 occasions in which that happened was that those items that we needed were not available from any of the suppliers here because we needed those items right away. Is that the thing? That's what I was told. Okay, that's fine. Okay. As I stated, there's a lot of stuff we can obtain from Home Hardware here in Rockland, and a lot of purchases are made through Home Hardware here in Rockland. That's fine. I was just wondering why, since we'd gone through Home Depot. Yes, Mrs. Simard. I have nothing else to add. Councillor Lalonde? I had something. Do you have something else now? Councillor Levert has raised this issue because I toured the businesses here, and everyone that I talked to are not registered with MERX, this government program. And the other one, you see, that's why people here in Rockland don't go to tender, because they don't receive any notice to tender. They have to belong to the MERX organization. Well, you see, they themselves, if I'm a business and I'm not registered with MERX, well, shame on you then if you don't. It's not up to us, really. Mrs. Collier, all of our tenders are posted on our website, and we endeavor to have the most impartial purchasing process. Yes, impartial. Mr. Mayor, if people wish to be included on the list of emails sent by the City of Clarence and Rockland on a regular basis and receive tenders, it won't cost them anything. It's free. If those people, and why don't you suggest, Mr. Leon, to those people that are addressing this issue to you, ask them to be included on the sending list. Well, and also the Chamber of Commerce people can do the same thing and take the same type of action. Well, we can bring that issue up at the next meeting. The $450,000, that the $195,000 contingency costs with regards to Caron Street, and that it be debated at the next time. Mr. Leonard, the part that turns from Caron into industrial that leads on to the CIH establishment to work over the entrance leading onto the CIH, because all this was included in the 850,000 development fund, just to close it up temporarily. Yeah, that's another side issue, by the way, side issue. Both go hand in hand, Caron and industrial, as well as the entrance leading onto CIH. Yes, we've deviated from the usual adjournment called at 9:19.